You ever wondered how to hook up everything in your home studio? I got you. I don't think this is ridiculous at all. I don't feel cramped in the least. I think there's more desk space here. So we're here in the Makeshift bedroom studio. First things first, we've got our space. We have our extra recording room, which you may or may not have in your bedroom, but you probably have a 64 with 007, let's be honest. First things first, you're probably gonna need a computer. There we go. Great, we've got our computer. Next thing, we're gonna need an interface. Perfect. Let's get that hooked up real fast. So there's a whole lot of different options you can go with as far as an interface, and we could have picked any number of them off the shelf behind me, but we're just going to keep it really simple with the Neve 88M. Simple as in simplicity of setup, not necessarily price tag. There are way cheaper interfaces that we can talk about. There are way more expensive ones that we can talk about, but as far as I/O, this keeps it pretty simple yet high quality for the home studio. So the cool thing here about the Neve 88M is you don't have to do a whole lot. It automatically sets itself up. You don't have to download drivers, at least if you're on a Mac. So first things first, you're just gonna pull up audio MIDI setup on your Mac. Neve pops right up, and we can see at least what clock source we have. This is important if you decide to hang something off of this, if you have a little more of a crazy home setup, because this can take optical in and out. So you can have up to 10 in, 10 out on this device, as long as it's clocked the right way. And a lot of people complain about pops and clicks. That's why. There's not an easy way to change the clock. Go into your audio MIDI setup. Other than that, the Neve is about as simple as it gets as far as setup. Now you can do something like an Apollo, where you have like a third-party system in between a console app. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different type of setup. This keeps it really simple for us right now. Obviously, you can go way cheaper than this with something like a Focusrite Solo. Next thing we're gonna need are some speakers. So these are the Focal Alpha Evo 65s. These are $399 a pop, or around $790 for the pair. Among the kind of mid-tier monitor that's smaller in size, this has been a favorite of mine. Caveat, I really like the Focal sound. They have an absolute crazy punch for their size, and admittedly, this is a very small desk. This is starting to get cramped. One thing to think about in your home setup is at least surrounding yourself with as many controllable factors as you can. You're never gonna have a perfect environment to do this in, so we have our wall here, which happens to have a window, so we can see the talent. You may or may not have that in a space that you're working in. We do, but I'm going to try to separate as best I can to reduce reflections, at least with these speakers. Ultimately, picking your speaker doesn't have to be this crazy thing, and there's so much argument about what's best. It's really down to what works in your room. If you get the biggest, baddest thing you can afford, you may find that that does not work for your room because they're just too big. There's not enough space between you and the monitor for that sound to mature the way it really needs to. This way, the kind of the best of both worlds. You can sit a little further from it. You can put an extension on your desk, move it further away from you, but for all intents and purposes, let's keep it simple right now. What we have going on right behind here, we've got a big gobo that we've rolled in. The idea here is I want to kill as many reflections from this wall. Why wouldn't I just take them and set them up here to free up desk space? You could do that. But if the goal is you want to keep this as flat as possible with as many variables controllable, I don't want to set this up on a wall against a wall that's not treated, especially not a window that's not treated. At least here, I'm not going to get reflections. We can take that a step further using Auralex old foam. We just found this laying around the studio. But this will vastly increase your satisfaction and possibly hers when you use these on your desk.
Nice.
Sam, I need your help here. Welcome the intern, Sam. Round of applause. Sam, could you hold this speaker up for a second?
Sir.
Don't touch the cone. You're good. Okay. Little higher. Little higher. Little higher. Too high. Deck down. Okay. So effectively what we have here is just foam to set this on to decouple it from the desk. Not only that, because it's so low, when we're in a seated position, it's kind of going to get it in the right position towards our ears. With a desk set up like this, I challenge you to find a desk this small. This is just what we have around here. Most of the time, your desk is going to be far deeper than this, far wider than this. This is a worst case scenario. Sam, speaker. Thank you, Sam. Back down, my friend. Thank you. Like a pro. So from here, we can just plug these speakers directly into the monitor outputs on our interface and call it a day. We'll have sound, we're good to go. But what if we take this a step further? What if we want more dedicated headphone outputs than what our interface has? Maybe we want a little more headroom. Maybe we want some different options as far as sources and auxes, and maybe we want to incorporate a sub. What are we going to do then? This is where we get a little creative, just like this transition to our sponsor. Radial sent along the Nuance monitor controller. This is a super little compact, very clean monitor controller for $700. Goes right on top of your desk and can handle most of the I/O you would need for a home setup. So our next step is really just hooking this bad boy up. We're going to go from the monitor outputs of our 88M or whatever interface you choose into the inputs of the Nuance or whatever monitor controller you want to use. You have a lot of the functionality on here that you would need for a typical monitor controller, barring one glaring feature, a talkback. Some people will not care about this. Some people will really care about this. I'm used to having a talkback on my monitor controller. Nowadays, most of that's taken care of within your interface. That may not affect you. That may let that decide if this is right for you or not. The one benefit here is this is possibly one of the lowest THD, total harmonic distortion, units available as far as a monitor controller. To the point that, actually, can we take a walk? Let's take a look in here real quick, in the very messy control room. This is my monitor controller that I bought years ago, the Dangerous Monitor ST. All the connections are there in the rack. There's a remote control here on my desk. I can control my talkback here. There's a ton of inputs, a ton of outputs. Objectively, you can do way more than the Nuance. The difference being this was very expensive. And at this point is very outdated. But one of the things that made this super attractive was it didn't have capacitors in the line. It's super clean, but because of that, and possibly the time that it was developed, you had to be really careful with it because it comes with warnings on the boxes and on the rack unit itself. If you plug something into it, it will fry it. And I knew multiple people that happened to. It will get broken if you hot plug something into it. So now, fast forward to relatively modern times as I age myself, we have Radial, who basically has a solution for any audio problem that you could ever think of. They did this with no caps in the line to go along with the monitor controller I have in the control room. This was one of my first monitor controllers, the Monitor Station by Presonus. You can pick the newer version of this up, and I keep it for emergencies. It's kept around. These are around $299, $300. The larger brother of this, like the Central Station, which has more bells and whistles, is $100 less than the Nuance. They're not the same device. I can tell you this, at least, this has noticeable distortion. You definitely know when this is in line with your monitors. Sponsor video or not, because we did not have to go through with making a video if we didn't want to. But the distortion is very not noticeable or noticeably lower. We can put the number up on the screen, but it's like 0.00001 percentage points of THD, which is absurdly low measurements of distortion in the channel. And this was not. So, food for thought. So you have that super clean thing. What's even the point of that? Why would you even care? If you have a super clean signal path and there's not much between you and the source, in this case, your interface, you're going to get the truest and cleanest form of that audio coming back to you through your speakers. So think about your transients, the phase relationship, the cleanness of the low end. The transient response of most of these things is That's the part I'm most worried about. That's what you're going to hear on your compressor settings, your attack settings, your release settings. Where's my output? Good thing we have this ledge to hide all of our disgusting cables. And that is a skill I do not have. Hiding cables. So there we go. I feel like I'm in like a 90s basketball movie or something. The 65s, they still impress the crap out of me. This video is not about the 65s, but holy cow. So, Jeremy, why even bother putting something between you and the interface? Well, say we want to get a little more complicated here. Maybe we've got some mix cubes that we want to put up, a set of auxiliary monitors. We want to put something else we can listen to because we're not in a perfect environment, so we may want to listen on as many different sources as possible, which is a whole different topic for a whole other video. But let's go crazy here. Why don't we add a very obnoxiously large sub to this, which would be not ideal just using our interface. Let's go get it. Okay. Oh my god. Okay.
The groin.
The trick is you gotta lift in a jerking, twisting motion. And for those of you at home, there's 2 people holding cameras and 1 person holding a sub. Good lord. Leg day. Don't do this at home. Holy moly. Can you put on screen how much this weighs? And then let the world make fun of me because it's lightweight.
25 pounds, right?
Okay. Get the cables. So now look, we have a dedicated sub output. As I catch my breath. Not so bad with a partner lift, thanks guys. The cool thing here about the sub output on the Nuance is it's full range. So if you wanted to use that as just like a mono mix cube set up right in the middle, you could do that. So most subs objectively overkill for what we're showing here. Most subs have a built-in crossover, and this one we have set to 150. So it's going to ignore everything above 150 and just play the subs of the music. So one of the cool things here now, we can decide what we want to listen to in any combination. Say we had another set of speakers. These are our A's, so we can turn on the A's, turn off the A's. If we had B, imagine a speaker playing. And now we have our sub separate on its own crossover. So now we can pull in our sub. So you can listen to your sub with any speaker setup that you have. That was just for me. That actually sounds really good. Like, this isn't a bad spot. Weirdly. Now, this is objectively probably too cramped. But in most of my home studios, when I got my start out, I was on a desk that was stacked just like this. It's about doing what you can with the space that you have, and then how does that translate to other environments? Are you gonna put a sub 12 right next to your desk? Probably not, but you could. Are you gonna put alpha evos this close to your face? I don't know, I actually don't hate them this close. I can't imagine, because you have the HS8s.
I do, yeah.
How close do you sit to yours?
They're probably 2.5 feet from me.
So you got some space.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine sitting this close?
Not with those, no way.
Well, here, trade me and you tell me. I'm just curious at this point. So I'm curious because you're further away and the HS8s are pretty close to the same price bracket. So
They are, yeah. I feel like if I had just another foot, like push these out another 6 inches, the stereo image would feel a little bit better.
oh,
But-
totally.
It's not bad where they are. They're not overpowering my ears the way that I thought they might, being this close.
Mhm. One of the last things in that level of controllability and like reduction of variables in your own setup, of which we are limited to desk size and you may as well. one thing you want to do is try to get your equilateral triangle from your listening position. Ignore the sub for now. We'll actually just turn it off. So this is going to be an absurdly small triangle, but like woofer to woofer, tweeter to tweeter, what are we looking at? 27 inches ish, 28. So in an ideal world, my listening position would be that far back. So about right here. So I'm pretty far from the desk to an uncomfortable point. So finding a space that works in the space that you have allotted, and then even if you can adapt a desk, get them separated, push it further back, decouple it from your space, however you can do that. Even that's doable. If I had to do some work here, I could. I wouldn't enjoy it because I'm definitely used to a tidier setup, something with a little more space. Being this close, if that's what you're used to, it can be totally fine. When the only thing you have to go off of if your mix is if you can trust your monitoring setup or not. And there's so many variables in a home studio or in a commercial location. So keeping hold of as many of those as you can, whether it's a monitor station, whether it's monitor placement, whether it's your interface, whether it's the environment as a whole, and you just need it to be decluttered, unlike something like this that we put together in 10 minutes. Whatever those are that make you work better and faster, it's worth it. So figure out if something like this is worth it for you. Figure out if monitors like this are worth it for you. All in all, home setup, there's no rules here. You can do whatever you want to do. But the goal should be what makes you work better, faster, and higher quality.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video on our makeshift home studio. If you like this one, then maybe you'll like this video about why the Focal Trio 6s became the main monitors in the studio.